Well, hello, I am Tamara Scott. It is time to start, a little bit late on the dot, but thank you for being patient with us. You're listening to Truth for Our Time, and we are powered by webcastonelive.com. Webcastonelive.com. That's a studio right here in Des Moines, Iowa. And if you'd like to learn more about that, you can click on that website, and there are all kinds of options there. Joining me today in studio are a couple of people who I liked and I admired and got to know them a whole bunch better in January. And then we're supposed to have a couple more people that I didn't know as well, but got to like and got to know a whole bunch better in January. And they're not making it so quickly. For those of you who are not in the Iowa area, we're dealing with snowstorms. We're dealing with typical Iowa winter weather. And so one is hopefully going to make it shortly. The other is a busy schedule, as a pastor just couldn't join us today, and we hate that. But we knew if we started waiting till we could get everybody together, and we just needed to go while it was still fresh on our minds. So Jeff Mullen is the pastor who can't make it with us here today. He's from Point of Grace, one of the active churches out on the northwest side of the city and the suburbs of Waukee. And then Eric Branstad is our other friend. We're hoping to see him come walking into the studio at any point in time. And he sent me a text during my last taping, and I didn't get it read in time. And, of course, I am so technologically suited that I'm not sure I can even find it now. But we'll hope that Eric can join us one way or another here shortly. And he was on the trip. Also, Terry Amon, who is a pastor, no stranger. I've interviewed him on shows, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 different radio stations, Terry.
I think so, yeah.
Terry is with Walnut Creek Community Church. I would say they're on the north side, but here's the deal. They're in the central part. They're in downtown. They're on the south side. I think maybe you have a Johnston branch now?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And they're out west in the old Nazarene church ground, a wonderful facility that they are open to helping groups use throughout the community as a service. And so if there's a church that's living out the New Testament gospel, I would have to say Walnut Creek is doing a good example of being that living in terms today.
Thank you for those kind words. Yeah.
You're welcome. You're welcome. And also joining me today is Denise Bubeck. Denise is the State Outreach Coordinator for Concerned Women for America. Concerned Women for America is the nation's largest public policy organization. And she's also an advocate for Israel. I knew that when she went to the public policy conference last year in D.C. And the group that brought us all together is AIPAC, and I always mess up. It's American Israel Public Affairs Committee. Mm-hmm. But I often say Public Policy Association, but it's American Israel Public Affairs Committee. And so some of those folks who joined us on the trip, I did send them an email last night. There's a chance, I suppose, they might be listening. And if they want to join into the conversation, they are welcome. 855-244-0077, 855-244-0077. And of course, if you would like to join in the chat line, I will try and get that on my computer as well. That chat line is at webcastonelive.com, and we'd love to have you join in there with us. So, weather's changed a little bit from where we were a couple weeks ago. Let's see, it's Wednesday, so on that Wednesday, I can't remember what we would have been doing on a Wednesday in Israel. I remember the Monday we left, we had our toes in the Sea of Galilee.
Mm-hmm.
So let me just open it up. Had either of you been there before?
This was my first trip to Israel.
My first trip, too.
Yeah.
Was it what you expected? How was it different than you expected?
I think kind of one area that I thought, I'll go to the Holy Land, and then I will have seen the Holy Land, and that's great. And then once you get there and see how much there is to see, and you can only be in a couple places, and you don't have much time, and so I come away thinking that you either need to stay 5 months or go back 10 times.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So much to see, so much to take in, but it was awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, and the Lord bless us with incredible weather.
We did.
Great weather.
I mean, I had been there once. God has blessed me to get to go there twice. I just can't believe that. But we did have really great weather.
Blue skies.
And for me, the first time I went, this will date me. Do you remember the felt boards that they used to use in Sunday school?
Oh, yeah.
It was kind of a sticky felt material, and they'd put up little paper Bible characters on there.
Yeah.
And the photos, the pictures they put up, you'd have this hillside with some rocks and a shepherd person with a watering jug or whatever. So the first time I went, it struck me how much Israel was like the pictures I used to see in Sunday school, which it should be,
Exactly.
obviously, right? But
That's
it just
right,
struck
yeah.
me how much it was. For me, I think, too, I'm amazed at how much it still looks like it did in the Bible. If it were America, I'm afraid that we would have developed the whole country. Or we would have allowed for the, what do you call it when you're digging the
the archaeological
Yes.
digs, and yeah, it really has not taken over. The commercialization has not taken over, and that was I appreciated that. I was it was less than I expected, so that was a positive.
And
for
then
me.
when they did it well.
yes,
I mean, it was
yeah,
a nice job, not too much.
yeah, so that was good.
So what surprised you the most about it?
Well, I think there's a sense of the people that live there. They live on edge because of the infantadas they've had there, and you're just mindful that a suicide bomber could walk into the restaurant or the cafe, and so that surprised me. There's a little bit of an unease about that's prevalent, and I could almost sense that. So that really surprised me. I thought, since they haven't had those for the most part, they haven't for quite some time, but still. And then just to really hear the soldiers talk about their life with their weapons. We met these young people. They go in the military at 18, they're until 21, and then the reserves till 39. They've got to have their weapons with them everywhere. And we were told that if their weapon gets lost or stolen, they have to go to prison for 7 years. So they just literally hang onto that rifle, and M16s it looked like. And so that was pretty interesting.
I think I brought a picture of that too.
And I don't know, Ryan did. I tried to send these photos to Ryan last night, and again, and this one I don't think I'm in trouble for. I think it's that it was such a large photo we had trouble getting them go through. Ryan, if you want to just put up some of the photos from time to time, and that's us the last day.
Oh, yeah.
The Iowa 5 is in the middle there for those of you who are viewing. For those of you who are listening, it's a photo of us right in front of the Sea of Galilee, and the pebbles were black right there. And I tried to watch where we were at. You saw in the Qumran Desert, it was a different structure than it was where this Valley of Elah. It's a different structure. It's just amazing. They have 5 weather climates there, so I think that's also something for us to consider for such a small area. You can drive across the country in 5 hours, they said, from one
8
direction?
hours north and south, and then a little over an hour east and west.
About the size of New Jersey.
Yeah.
Is what.
So 8 hours north and south, and about an hour east and west. And so let's go back to that picture if we can. So for those of you who are looking, boy, I don't know if I can name everybody on that trip. Can you, from the left
Pretty
or the right?
much we can.
Is that Dean from the left over there?
Right, a pastor from Ohio.
And then is that Josh next to him?
Duggar.
Josh Duggar, one of the 19. Peeking over the shoulder there is Bev Halen, the state director for Concerned Women for America out of Missouri. And then there's Robert, and I'm not going to remember his last name. It's
Fedorov,
Fedor-
pastor.
Yeah. And he'd been to Israel. This was his 20th trip. Jeff Mullen, pastor of Point of Grace. Myself, Terry Amon, pastor of Walnut Creek Community Church. Eric Brandstad, and then Denise Buback, outreach coordinator for Concerned Women for America of Iowa. And then next to her, Adam, his last name.
Began with a J.
Yeah.
Long
Yeah.
Polish
Had
name.
lots,
It's a
it had
Polish
lots
name.
of consonants in
Polish
it.
name.
Great guy, though.
And next to him, David.
David
Butler.
The pastor.
Next to him, Anne Hathaway.
Not the Anne Hathaway.
Not it is the Anne Hathaway. It is our Anne Hathaway, just not the one
Yeah.
other people know.
Sorry.
And then Ilana, who is with APAC, and then down in front is Kimmy, who this was not her first trip to Israel either. She's been there quite a few times. And then I don't know how you all refer to this man. I refer to him as Pastor Bam.
Pastor Bam Bam. Yeah, Tim McCurdy.
McCurdy.
And then next to him is Scott, our regional director I may have the title off there, from APAC.
Christian Outreach Director.
For APAC. So it was a great, great trip. And that was the trip right there. We had Jeff Mendelssohn's not in this photo, and Tom. Tom was our sage, wise. I just loved when Tom would share with us, the wisdom that he had, the experience that he had. And his son is actually in the book. We got this book called Startup Nation, and it's a really interesting read. I'll put it up there for you. Startup Nation, for those of you, you don't have to go to Israel to be interested, but what a great compilation of some of the success stories coming out of this young nation. Okay, so I started to ask you, what most surprised you? Did either one of you have a response to that?
Well, I think I was surprised most, and I kind of shared this before, with the passion of the people. Within their struggle, they have so much passion, and kind of what you referred to. I mean, they never know what's going to happen day to day. But there was everyone that we met, they had a passion for their country, they had a passion for their past, they had a passion for their future. It was amazing, the passion in the people that we met.
Yeah, they, talking about the suicide bombers or whatever, like, we met with so many people, and at the end they would say, okay, so I painted a very bad picture. Oh, but tomorrow will be a good day.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a really positive outlook on the future, and so that was an interesting thing to see.
What surprised me as well was the number of differing ethnic and religious backgrounds that are there. This is the Holy Land, and yet, as we know, the Arab or the Muslim community has put a dome or a mosque over what we consider some of the most holy territory, the rock where Abraham, we think, would have offered to sacrifice his son, and God had a replacement offering there for him, proving himself once again. We think that's where the temple, where Solomon's temple was. And so, sadly enough, we're not allowed into that area because the Arabs don't allow it.
Yeah, Ariel Sharon showed up one day and caused quite a stir. So yeah, we're prevented from going there, and
And then there was the other quarter. There's a Christian quarter, there's a Jewish quarter, and then there's another quarter. And I'm not remembering what that fourth quarter is. Is the Muslim the same as the Arab though?
I don't know. I'll check.
So we have all these different groups working really fairly well together inside Israel.
Yeah.
They seem to do fairly well together. It's those outside of Israel, the threats. And Ryan, I'm not sure which picture to tell you that it is, but we have some pictures with some pretty heavy border fences. If you can show those for us on the screen.
Just to the south of Jerusalem. I sent that picture. Are you talking about?
Yes.
Yeah, it's a great picture. It has the border fence that's right along, is it the southern part of Jerusalem, looking towards the Knesset.
I should have had my compass with me every time we were there, because I would try.
I thought I was south.
We're on a bus, so you're not even paying attention to where you're driving.
But I think they said it was only like 6 minutes from downtown, from where we were staying to that border fence. So it'd be interesting to see that picture.
And we went on the Gaza Strip. We went a mile within the Gaza Strip.
Sderot, the city.
And we now know that there are tunnels where people are smuggling in items that could be used to destroy Israel. I don't think in America, I guess for me, we know we're the melting pot, right? But we now have some boiling going on in our melting pot because things aren't gelling so well here. And yet they are dealing, I guess, a very similar fashion there. But they seem to be dealing with it a little bit better.
They are. Where you have problems is where Palestinians are kind of grouped together. And, I think we saw a lot of friction from that side of things, that they're not ready and willing to maybe live as neighbors. And then there's the external threat. I think one message that was clear to us, their external threat that they named several times is Iran. And so they have Iran, and then they have the Syrians on the border, the Lebanese, and thinking that they have the latest statistic I saw, 170,000 missiles pointed at them.
Right. Right.
And so
Say that
it's
again. How many
170,000
From the
missiles
Syrian
pointed?
border.
on the Syrian border, and then across Lebanon, and then with what the Palestinians have. And we saw some of those missiles, some of the cheaper missiles, kind of interesting. They can send those for a couple $100. They can throw those into Israel, and yet to shoot those down with their Iron Dome system, it cost $50,000 per missile. I saw just this last week they hit a missile in Iliad. And so every time they do, that's $50,000. So if you figure if 170,000 missiles start coming, they get real expensive to try to hit those.
And then even since January, I just read the other day, 28 missiles have come into the country. 28.
Just since January.
Just since January. And that's, some of them they are landing like in fields.
And they let those go.
They let those go. So I'm not sure the statistic of how many they've used the Iron Dome for, but 28 since January.
And they explained it to us that they don't look at it as the cost of defense. They look at it as the investment of their community. 50,000 that they won't have to be rebuilding, but 50,000 keeping communities safe, keeping kids safe, keeping life going. Denise, you and I were in the lobby in the hotel, and we saw on your Facebook page that the Iron Dome had stopped 4 or 5 missiles the night before, and you and I looked at each other and went, "Is that old? Did that happen last night?"
Right.
Because in the community, we heard nothing about it. Now on the news, they said it would have been on the news, but we didn't hear or understand Hebrew. But in our stores, no one was saying, "Did you hear?" Or,
Right.
"Did you
It
see
didn't
this?"
shake the
No.
community. Right.
Yeah.
It happens so often, as we saw when we went to Serdort.
They're done, yeah.
Sadat.
The children playing on the inside. Sarot. There's a D in there, but there's no D. Sarot. The children are playing on the indoor playground, almost a bomb shelter type playground. Delightful children, certainly not shy.
Yeah, they're kids, and it looks like that's all they've known, so they've adapted to that. And so we got to see them smiling or whatever, but the reality is if they're outside and the warning system goes off, they have 15 seconds to get into a shelter, which,
Right.
again, it's hard to imagine living that way. And you can see, in the United States, if Mexico had already sent 28 missiles across the border, our government actually might do something. Maybe not, but we might say this is unacceptable. But yet that's how they live daily.
And it makes you wonder, at what point will we be concerned about all those people who are coming across the border illegally when they have enough people here? If Mexico would decide to do something like that, that will probably give us a little more a simulation to what Israel deals with.
Right. And what to take notice of when you drive into that town was each of the bus station or bus stops
Yeah.
were bomb shelters. Every bus stop was a bomb shelter. That
And
was interesting.
And they thought they had it so that when you heard the rocket fire, you had 15 seconds to reach one of those bomb shelters, which I'm thinking, if that's an average, I'm probably not going to make it.
Yeah.
But they were close enough. If you started noticing as we drove, you probably could make it from bus stop to bus stop. You probably could.
We just don't think about that. When you drive through your community and you see a bus stop, imagine if that were a bomb shelter. So your children would know. I mean, as a parent, you're going to be sending your kids out during the day saying, now remember, you hear that, don't mess around. Get yourself in that bomb shelter. Can you imagine that's the advice you give your kids each day?
Yeah, that and our guide, if you remember Avi, our guide, he said his son takes the number 17 bus to school. Every day it's the only way he can get to school. They're dependent upon that. That bus has been bombed 4 times.
That
And
number.
that it's just hard to wrap your mind around how do you put your child on that bus, and you don't know. So again, that's how they live, but their outlook is very positive.
We're going to go to a break right here. When we come back, we may have another one joining us. I think I heard the studio door open on the outside, so we'll be pleased to have that. But I am Tamara Scott. Joining me in studio so far is Denise Buback from Concerned Women for America, Terry Amon from Walnut Creek Community Church, and we'll see who's joining us next when we open that door after break. You'll have to stay tuned to find out. We're powered by webcast1live.com.
Hey, psst. Let me let you in on a little secret. You ready? Always try to do business with people, not places, especially if you seek honest Christian business people. And when it comes to my car, I really need to trust who's working on it. Now, my family is so blessed. A few years ago, we found a family-owned automobile repair shop that operates as a Christian business also. Open, honest, reliable, trustworthy. It's AMCO on Hickman Road in front of Kmart, and it's a family-owned Christian operating business. This family treats your car as if it was their car. Everything from oil changes to transmission repair and everything in between. So the next time you feel the need to be at peace with your choice of who you can trust with your car, give AMCO on Hickman a chance to serve you. And tell them Max sent you.
All across America, there are countless numbers of people struggling with addiction and other life-controlling issues. Probably someone you know and love. There is a way out. There is hope. Transformations Treatment Center in Delray Beach, Florida, has a unique approach to substance abuse treatment. Call now and ask about our Guaranteed Success program or log on to transformationstreatment.com. Transformations. Change your life. Change your relationships. Transform your world.
Get away from us, you mean old credit card. We don't have any more money. We're in trouble now. Save us! Help! Somebody save us! Somebody help! Help! Save us!
Hi, I'm Tom Coates from Consumer Credit of Des Moines. If your credit card's a little too animated, give us a call.
Hooray! We're saved! Consumer Credit! You're our hero!
And thanks for joining us. I am Tamara Scott. You're listening to Tamara Scott Live with Truth for Our Time. We have a special show today, I think, in-studio guest. We're talking about Israel. Recently, the AIPAC group, the American Israeli Public Affairs Committee, took a delegation to Israel in January, and we have four of the Iowa Five here in studio today. Jeff Mullen is not able to join us, but Denise Bubeck is here, Terry Amon is here, and now popping in during the break, Eric Branstad is joining us. Thanks, Eric. And you can pull that microphone a little bit closer. Thank you so much for joining us. I'd ask the others what surprised them about the trip. What surprised you most about Israel?
Well, a couple of things. The first thing, the big thing that I've felt and saw, and have been talking to many people, since coming back, is the real pride that Israelis have for their country, for service to their country. All of those things put together, you feel that pride. And one of the things, since this Coca-Cola commercial from the Super Bowl, is when they come to Israel and they become citizens in Israel, they learn Hebrew.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of those those pride in your country feelings. That's one of the big things that I saw in everyone we talked to and everyone we saw was that country pride. Mm-hmm. That I'm not saying we as Americans don't have pride, but I don't feel that same pride and that same commitment to country that I saw there.
Yeah.
And that was a big deal. And not to mention, as I described the trip to others, I use the term life-changing, and mm-hmm. with life-changing it means several things. Spiritually, for me personally, historically, public relations, all of those things put together made it such an impactful experience, trip, meeting, and getting to know you all. It was just very powerful.
Yeah, it was just a wonderful week. And you're right when you talk about that commercial. I think it's even more than pride. It's honor. Mm-hmm. They understand the honor of getting to come back to a homeland, and the honor of bringing people back together. I think it is more than a pride. And I think that's what's so hard for us to understand when Americans rebel and those who would cause harm or say things because we want to have a language. It's not hateful to have one language. It's unifying.
Right.
It's a safety measure. It brings us together. It's how we can accomplish things together if we can speak. We know statistics were done. Kids did better in school when they could speak the language. And so what a great point to bring up. Ryan, do you have another picture you want to pop up on the screen? And if you want to just put those up from time to time, we'll see them and we'll catch them. That is the border fence that I think Denise is talking about.
Correct.
And so where are we looking into here?
We're looking into just, I feel like south of there would be Bethlehem.
I think you're right.
That is occupied by the Palestinian. It's occupied.
And so we did not get to go to the birthplace of Jesus, Bethlehem, so this is actually one of their border fences. Okay, and is that the Knesset?
Right. So from that border fence to the Knesset, what did they say? Maybe 6 minutes, 12 minutes? I mean, it was very close.
Very close.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and I think we sum it up when Terry says it's an hour to drive across the nation. There is no safe place. When our president talks about 67 borders, or when we talk about military defense, there is no safety for Israel if she cannot defend herself.
Yeah, again, the message I think we heard overwhelmingly is that Iran is our number one enemy. Israel will have defensible borders, and Israel will defend herself. And one of the issues they pointed out was in the Jordan Valley between Jordan and Israel. And Dora Gold, former UN ambassador, current policy advisor to Benjamin Netanyahu, he specifically said, we want our Israeli troops in that valley because if we put in UN troops, they're going to turn and run when the shooting starts. We don't want American troops in there because this is our country. We can defend ourselves. And then just this last week, I heard our Secretary of State mentioning a military force in the Jordan Valley other than Israelis. So, but I think they're pretty emphatic on that. We will defend our borders.
They said to us, we don't want your American children here. We'll put our children here. They want to be self-sufficient, and isn't that what we should want for every country?
You would think that'd be a good rule, and then that patriotism that Eric talked about would motivate people to defend their borders.
The Masada, we kind of had a rushed trip coming out of the Masada. The cable car stopped on another group, not ours, thankfully. But while we were at the top of the Masada, we saw briefly the ramp. Did that catch all of you? I mean, to me, that ramp is even still standing. The ramp that the Romans would have taken time to build while you're up in this stronghold, one of Herod's castles or his old palaces. And a few of the Romans who had a few of the Jewish folks who had the strength, the determination, the means to get themselves to Masada, 70 A.D., when the Romans were destroying the city once again. This was the last stronghold. I can't imagine being in a tower watching someone build the ramp. I don't know what a catapult in that day looks like when they heave pretty hefty stones at you. Knowing that their end was shortly coming, they devised a plan. They killed their own children and wives, and then 11 of them drew stones off of their names on a potter's shell, and only one had to kill himself. The reason they did it, and they left all the stored food. They burned most of their own so that the others couldn't take it, couldn't benefit from it, but they didn't burn their food because they wanted the Roman soldiers to know we had plenty. We weren't here. We're not giving up. We had plenty. We're just not going to serve you. And when I first heard that, I thought, my goodness, why wouldn't you just let your kids be slaves? At least they'd be alive. And then it was explained to me because they didn't want their wives and children being forced to serve a false god. They knew eternity was much more important than any earthly time where kids would be co-opted into wrong theology, wrong beliefs, and serving a wrong God. That said so much to me that first time I saw that. And I thought, that's how America used to feel. We understood. We'll do what's right rather than accommodate or compromise. And now I see us on both sides of the aisle appeasing and compromising on things that God has already said. He's already spoken about in his word. So did Masada affect or impact any of you that way?
Well, I mean, it's just amazing to think. I think it's over 980 people lost their lives. They took their own lives essentially on that high point. And it's just I think it's called the Samson option. And it's hard to place your mind to come to a place where you would do that. And so it's a humbling place.
Very. I don't know how they got everything up there. It's just that
The
simple.
logistics. Denise is
I'm
the
thinking about the
logistics.
We barely got up there.
We
I don't
barely-
think it
and
They're
we-
obviously not scared of heights.
Right.
They had the aqueduct system,
Right, the watering. I mean, it was
the
just-
tiles that we saw on the floor. I mean, for that time period, we think of everything being primitive. It was very elegant and it was very spa-like. The heated floor,
Right.
the bathing
The ba-
rooms.
Yeah.
So maybe that's why, Terry, they had the courage. They had because the history that they'd been through already.
Right.
They'd seen what happened when Israel turned her back on God before, and they were not going to serve a country, a ruler who would force them to turn their back on God again. Death would be better. In fact, I'm not going to. Is it Winston Churchill? And I paraphrase it, and I'm almost like my paraphrase better than his now. But he said, if you refuse to fight when you have a chance of victory, you will indeed fight when you have no hope, because death will be no worse.
Old Winston always had a good word.
All right.
Very powerful.
So come back. Other things you brought. Shabbat,
Shabbat.
which is Sabbath for us here in America.
When we talk about pride, also, looking back at Shabbat and the pride that they take as family, namely the Shabbat being a time, and this is something that I'm now, since coming back, trying to do at my house, where at Shabbat, which is sundown on Friday to sundown on Saturday, no electronics, no phones, no cameras. You spend time with your family. And we were all very fortunate to go to a Shabbat dinner where we got to witness and experience and participate in a family's dinner, bringing us in to their home. And what was so cool is, and this is something that I guess we do to a certain extent at my house, having 3 girls. There's a lot of singing and shows going on at our house, in our living room and family room and kitchen tables. But this is about their faith, and this is about they as a family. And one of the cool parts that we all got to participate in too was going around and asking and sharing, what was your favorite part of the day? What was your favorite part of the week? And blessing your children and putting that all together as a family, where you're without the TV on in the background. You're not looking at your iPhone, seeing who's emailed you or what's going on Twitter or Facebook. This was real good family time, and based around their faith, and also bringing us into their home where we could experience and do and participate in those same things. It was definitely one of the most powerful parts of the trip for me. And I wish I had the photos to show, but we also participated. We also did not use those devices and those things, which was a nice break.
It really was.
Right.
And as you're saying that, I'm thinking, I would still want photos. You have those happy moments, but maybe it does cause you just to sit back and relax.
Right. I like too, the part I really liked is the father started out the blessings, and in the end, the oldest son was doing the final blessing. I just thought that was a powerful picture of their faith, of passing it on to the next generation. That was very meaningful to me.
And certainly the Christian connection there, they served bread and wine and had blessings. And so there's a picture of the Lord's Supper right in that. It was really, really great.
And for me, the blessing of the children.
Right.
I didn't even know this family, and I got teary-eyed when they were blessing, and I can't do it right now. I can't talk about it. But can you imagine if each of us took time to lay our hands on the children and to bless them, to say a prayer of blessing? We know the prayer of Abraham. We know the blessings of Abraham. The Bible warns us and encourages us to speak life, not death. And how many times during the day do busy parents say things that are less than uplifting to our kids? But if we took that time to be encouraging and to speak a blessing over our kids, what would we be doing? What benefit would that have? If the Bible's true, and out of the tongue comes life or death, we're speaking that blessing. All right. Other parts, other things that meant something to you, other sights that we saw, other wisdoms that you took away that you wouldn't have otherwise had.
Well, I think for me, just seeing biblical prophecy, it's just right before our eyes there. Just for instance, we stood on the Mount of Olives and looked down at the East Gate. Well, the scripture tells us in Ezekiel 44, Zechariah chapter 14, the Lord ascended into heaven there. He's going to descend there from the heavens, and from the east, he's going to look at that East Gate and go through that East Gate. And that East Gate is sealed up right now. So to stand on Mount Olives and just see, like, this is where our Lord's going to come, and he's going to go through that gate. And then another scripture, Isaiah 35, one, it says the desert will bloom. And so, when the Israelis got there, in 1948, when they really started pulling together, I mean, that place was a sandbox. Not anymore. It's a thriving place. And so, we have prophecy of the regathering of Israel, and that happened in 1948. And then you see these other things. Another verse, I think Isaiah 56:8, I think it is, and it talks about the people who are gathered will gather others. And we met this Ethiopian family that had come in 1990 or 91 in Operation Solomon, where the Israelis had a cloak and dagger operation to bring Ethiopian Jews into Israel, and they brought in over 14,000 under the radar. And one of those, the individual that we met, his family, a man appeared to him in the night and said, "If you follow me, I'll take you to the promised land." And boy, that's such a picture of our Judeo-Christian history, isn't it? I mean, it's just a beautiful thing. And so they followed this man for 100 miles with one bottle of water for a family of 14. And so you just see Bible prophecy fulfilled. We see things going on in the world that are so bad, and we can all make a list. Well, that's the devil's work, and we can all point to the devil's work, but it's like God's like saying, wait a minute, look what I'm doing. And so for me, that was just tremendous. Just tremendous to see Bible prophecy. It's just happening right there.
Anybody else?
A couple of the things that I saw. One was Israel as a country that could take a problem, figure it out, and get it done in a short amount of time. That's something that we don't see in our government very often.
Yeah.
Whatever the problem, if it is food, if it is immigration, if it is all of those things, they figure it out. If it is technological, they put the right minds and they want to fix that problem. They find a goal and they do what it takes to fix it. And in everything that we saw, they fixed those in a very short amount of time. It isn't something that they debate on and go through, and they find the problem, they figure out a way to fix it, and they get it done. And that's how I try to do my business and my life, and that is one of the things that I felt no other country can do, or as definitely as efficient, and with all of their other challenges on top of
Right.
it. And when it comes to their defense, another things that we learned is they take extra steps. They're not just throwing rockets at their enemies. They're not just doing those things. They want their enemies safe. And one of the stories at the Syrian border, where they get Syrians jumping the fence, Syrians who have been hurt jumping the fence, and the Israelis will pick them up and they will take care if they're shot or whatever that happened in their own country from their own civil wars or their own people. The Israelis will take care of them, fix them up, and take them back. They take all of those extra steps in order to be neighbors to their neighbors, where really what they're having to worry about all the time. And, they would or should be vengeful. However, they're not. They take care of their neighbors. And when they know they have an intelligence like I've never seen before, or certain conversations and things that we got to see and were a part of, where they take the extra steps too when there is a problem or they do need to defend themselves. They take those extra steps in order to protect their neighbors, but namely protect themselves.
Yeah, they do. You're right. They care for others' children while others are planning to kill their children.
Correct. I think that stands out to me was the IDF soldiers that we met up on the Syrian border. I mean, they had a problem with injured Syrians, so what did Israel do? They built a hospital to provide care for the Syrians. That was powerful to me. And these young men that were medics and young women are 21 years old. And that was their first, they just were impacted to take care of the injured. That was amazing to me to hear them speak.
Yeah, that was one of the issues they brought up in terms of problem solving. They said as things we talked about, as the Syrian government and country continues to erode and destabilize, that they could have 100,000 refugees on their borders. And how are they going to deal with that? And your sense is they'll open the gates wide, they'll take them in, and they'll figure out how to do it.
Mm-hmm. And it makes me wonder what we could be doing ready to help, whether it's the meals that we send, the harvest, what is that, Heartland, Meals of the Heartland? Do we need to have something like that ready to help when you have a country who's doing such great work, as you said, Eric, on their own? They really do fix problems quickly. They said in America, when you want to start a business, it takes you years to plan, loans, permits, licensing. When we want to start a business, we start it that week. Something to think about. We have to go to break. We'll be right back after these messages. You're listening to Tamara Scott live with Truth for Our Time on webcast1live.com, and we'll be right back.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
I'm Brian Leach, owner and general manager of Service Legends. I brought along a couple of the home comfort heroes.
Hi, I'm Tammy Wells.
I am Nick Wondershide.
I'm administrative manager.
I'm the senior technician
from Service Legends.
It seems like every good thing, when you feel it to the bone that it's good, there's a lot of hard work put behind it. I don't think that you can fake it and have it turn out good.
If we seem like, okay, that's just weird, it's just a furnace, why would you believe so deeply in a furnace? It's not just that, we want to show the world that you can have good service.
Yeah, it's your home.
It's built into our daily trainings, it's built into our culture, that we're gonna do whatever it takes to have each client say they love us, period.
That's why we spend all the hours in the training that we do. And if we guarantee it's gonna be a good experience for you, or else it's free, what type of work do you think we're gonna do?
There is a guarantee.
Temperature selection guarantee, fixed right or it's free guarantee, comfort guarantee, best value guarantee. All of these guarantees hold us accountable to ensuring that we exceed your expectations. And if for whatever reason we'd fail and we can't make it right, we guarantee all of those guarantees with a 100% money back guarantee.
If you don't think that your technician can fix it right, are you gonna say that to a client? No.
You don't have to worry about having a technician come to your house.
We drug test, background check all of our team members. We put safe people in your home. Each and every one of our service techs, 400 hours a year in training.
You tell it the minute they walk in the door. They know what they're doing, they've done their homework, and they actually truly care about what you want.
Because at the end of the day, you're the person that makes sure I have a job.
They're gonna be listening. They're gonna wanna know what your challenges are. Then they're gonna come and give you options, and you get to choose.
If I'm there to help and I make it easy and painless, I did my job right that day.
Well, when it comes to your comfort, safety, and your family, you don't necessarily go buy the most expensive, but you get the most bang for your buck.
Oh, it's worth it, because there's a lot of people that will find a way to get it to work right now and then leave and then come back, charge you again, and the cycle just repeats itself. So when I'm out there looking at the furnace, I want to find why it failed today. How can we change the part today with something that you're not going to have to worry about? Is it worth changing the part today? You can put a lot of money into a furnace. I can fix parts all day. There's good job security in that for me. But is it the right thing for you?
I get a lot of the phone calls of after the technicians are there. They're just in awe. They're like, wow, you guys are great. I don't even know what to say. You guys are great. Everything you did was perfect. It was great.
Keep going though. I like this.
Just give us a try. I'm gonna take all the risk.
I've got the time to make this right. I've got the support to make it right.
Just check us out.
And if you don't see the value in what we do,
I mean, fixed right or it's free or 100% money back.
enough said.
We have referred to ourselves as the Iowa Five, the group that were blessed enough to go to Israel with the APAC, the American Israeli Public Affairs Committee. And we went in January 2014. It was a great trip. Denise Bubeck from Concerned Women for America, Terry Amon from Walnut Creek Community Church, Eric Brandstad. You were there as a public consultant and official.
Yep.
And Jeff Mullen was there, Point of Grace Church, and then I myself as National Committee Woman and a State Director for Concerned Women for America. It is life-changing, Eric. It's life-changing. The experiences, what you take in. For me, seeing the history. We have professors in this country who want to deny that Jesus existed or who he was. You can't deny it there when they say, this is, the De La Rosa, this is the tomb we believe he came out of. And they also give faith to the Sepulchre, Church of the Sepulchre. And I love the point they made, no matter where you think it was the Catholic spot or it was the Christian spot, the beauty in both is that he's not neither. He's the only God, the only Messiah that has risen. Buddha is still in the grave. Hindu's still in the grave. Anybody else who dies is still going to be in their grave. Jesus rose, that we all might have life. He conquered death. So that was powerful for me. We have a connection with Israel. America has a connection with Israel. Two countries built on a covenant. And so I thought about tagging this show, the Iowa Israel 5, Keeping the Covenant Alive. We are...
That's good. That's good.
Oh, good. Yeah, very good.
Yeah.
We have two countries built on a covenant. We talked about the startup nation, all the innovations, all of the creations, the medical breakthroughs, the inventions that have come out of Israel. Same with America. Per capita, we have more coming out of these two countries than any other country on the face of the earth. And both are relatively young countries. Mm-hmm. But both were founded on a covenant with God. All right. Your take.
First, one of the big things that scared me, and that I've been focused on since I got back, and this is something that we learned at the Shabbat dinner from Gil Troy, whose family hosted us, and he's a professor at McGill University up in Montreal, Canada. Is his biggest fear today, coming from the United States, is what's coming out of the universities and what our students and are being taught regarding Israel and what they're doing and the misconceptions and the falsehoods that are happening there. It's something that I'm going to continue to fight, and something that I will definitely speak up on. I'll speak up on a lot of things, but this is one thing that the more I've read and the more I've seen scares me. Mm-hmm. And what these children, soon to be, my children are being taught at the universities. I'm looking for a way to change that and to speak up so that they know the truth.
Right.
Yeah, the anti-Israel sentiment that swept across Europe and forced the Jews to be what we know as the wandering Jews, trying to find a home, trying to find a place to be a nation, and even when they finally got their location with the help of the British, then as World War II broke out, the British turned their back on Israel. And today it seems like our government is not a very good friend at times, I guess would be the way to say it. But we look in the Bible, we see Genesis 12, God gave the Israelites that land in perpetuity. It's forever. So we can come up with whatever plans we want, but God gave them that land. Today, they're our best ally in that region. It's the safest place for Christians in the Middle East is in Israel. And we have like-minded economies, and we're linked by history, by faith, and by just political realities and economic realities. And so I think it's important that we stay on our leadership on the issue of Israel, and like AIPAC, the security and the safety of Israel. And obviously, the big thing on the table right now is those nuclear sites in Iran. And what are we going to do? What is going to happen with those?
Well, I'm trying to look up on my computer, Eric. You're absolutely right. What's coming out of the universities is incredibly dangerous, not just to Israel, but to our sovereignty as well. Do you remember the reporter we had speak to us? They told us he was an Arab Muslim. And so I had my hesitations going into the meeting. What would this man say? And I found him to be quite warm, quite honest. He spoke truth, and he said, I feel safer in Israel than I do in your town called Detroit. Actually, he said, I have concerns about your town, Detroit, when we ask him about violence. But he said, I feel safer in Israel than I do on your college campuses when I speak about Israel. The hostility that he gets from our campus environment. And if he's picking up on it as a speaker coming in, you're absolutely right. Our kids are being fed on a daily basis in a variety of classrooms and settings. And so the danger of this is, unlike a car part, we can't do a recall. We have kids who are programmed wrong. That's the danger of this. And I don't know how you correct generations of wrong teaching, but it is an issue. We do need to deal with it. And folks can go to Troycott Facebook. There's a Troycott. Instead of boycott, there's a Troycott. That's the professor who had us into his home, and you can learn more about him as well. Even the mainline churches now doing boycotts on companies that are working with Israel. We have an issue before us. And as the Israelis are good at finding a solution, we need to find a solution on this one. You're absolutely right. When America refuses to stand with Israel, we will lose our blessing. It's quite clear in Genesis. Because of that, the governor of this state, Brad Sherman, a pastor out of Williamsburg, Iowa, came to Concerned Women for America and said, I have this idea. If our president won't stand with Israel, and if he could put our nation at risk, could we not at least protect our state with blessings? We connected him with David Edelman, and he had good connections with the governor's office. The governor signed on that proclamation, I think, in 2012, in May of 2012. So we give our governor credit for at least holding Iowa up above the measure.
Yeah, isn't it interesting? It says in that scripture, Genesis 12, I will bless those who bless you and curse those who curse you. And that was spoken to the Israelites, but the principle is still the same today for us. And isn't it interesting? West Des Moines, Iowa has the best job market in the United States. And today, the Today Show just named Des Moines, Iowa, the wealthiest city in the nation for a variety of reasons. That is the place to live. And so you see that scripture. It's being lived out right before our eyes.
And we thank our governor for that.
Yes. Yep.
That's awesome.
All right. Other things that you came away with from your trip to Israel?
Well, I think being down at the Wailing Wall on Friday night when the Sabbath began, and there was probably my guess was 6,000 to 7,000 Orthodox Jews all packed down to the wall. And our guide said, "Well, you can go down there. I don't know if you can get to the wall." And I just looked at him and said, "Oh, I'm going to the wall, brother." And so just to get down there in that sea of humanity, and they're reading from their Hebrew prayer books, and they're all praying on a different page. They're praying the same thing, but on different pages, and they're crying out. So you get the Wailing Wall effect. And so I had the Hebrew prayer book in my Bible, and I put on a yarmulke going on down, and I made it to the wall, and it was just a tremendous opportunity to pray. And it was nighttime, and the floodlights were on. It was just tremendous. Just a very powerful moment for me in Israel.
Anybody else?
With both the Wailing Wall and in the Olive Garden and many other places throughout the trip, I got feelings, and I felt things that I've never felt before, and that, well, made me that much stronger spiritually, and made my faith that much stronger, but also let me know that there is something much bigger than me, and this is truly a holy place, and there's a reason that they call it the Holy Land, and I felt it, and I continue to feel it, and it was exciting and magical and all of those things at the same time.
I think that's the same thing for me too. It was just a very spiritual, life-changing, and like Pastor Raymond mentioned, to see the scriptures and to see the miracles being fulfilled right before our eyes, that was just truly a blessing. The trip was outstanding, very well organized, and I just thank APAC for the great experience of showing us Israel, and the speakers were phenomenal. I mean, it was just a great experience and makes us even more have Israel in our heart.
Even the timing of the events, the way they had things structured were perfect throughout the week. But you're right, some of the speakers, very informative. APAC.com if you want more information. And Ryan, if you'll put that photo back up, that is looking out West Bank over these homes.
Right.
We're at the West Bank, correct?
Right.
And what surprised me, and I heard somebody else in the group say it, and it fit. They said, I feel like I'm looking out over a suburb in Arizona. Mm-hmm. These homes are a little bit nicer. They're spread out. It was less expensive to live here than it was right into Jerusalem, correct? And so that's why people are coming to this suburb. Right. I suppose if you're West Bank, I expected tin sheds. I expected bomb shelter type rubbish. And it was beautiful. And I could hear kids singing. I don't know if you all heard it that day. There was like a daycare around. Kids were singing in the background. It's much more peaceful than I imagined. I think that we see photos from war-torn Middle East, and we forget that there are pockets of civilian neighborhoods, people who are just trying to do what's right, what's best for their family, people who are trying to live out their heritage, their ethnic heritage, their religious and spiritual heritage into the prophecies.
Mm-hmm. Right, and the significance of this is that looking out is 50% of Israel's infrastructure. You know, their businesses is right looking out into the distance there, and how close that is to the Tel Aviv airport, how close West Bank is. So that is a significant picture, and if we would go back to or if they went back to the 1967 border.
Or if we allowed someone other than the Israel people to defend that valley, they're not going to have the same commitment. And I just heard today on my way in on the radio, I don't even know what news source it was, that the UN, the Syria had already failed to come through with something for the UN. There is no threat there. The UN is not going to provide the same security. They cannot, as Israel can for themselves. We've got to go to closing here, but on the way out, what would you all like to touch on or leave for our listeners?
One of the things, just to follow that up, and Dory Gold mentioned this too, is the when they in the defense of that area, they had they've been continued to be pushed, and what the Iranians and what the Syrians and what they are saying to them, what they say at Camp David or at one of these peace accords is one thing. What they go back and tell their people, and this is all well documented. We got those brochures from Dory Gold, and what they say to their people is hate and harm, and what they say at the peace accords and Camp David and wherever else they're negotiating, they're saying something different. And that's something that we all need to know. Israel is consistent in saying the same thing. They are teaching hate and they're showing hate, and that's unacceptable. And we need to hold Syria and Iran and these agreements. We need to hold them accountable to what they agree to, and that's something that a lot of times we push off for long periods. And we can't let that happen, and we all need to know and understand what's going on.
Right.
Yeah, I think with that, with our enemies on the borders, we do need a clear position with from the United States, our stance with Iran. And there are Christians in Syria right now that are suffering horribly. Some of the reports coming out right now, they don't have enough food and they're sealed off. And so we need to be in prayer for the Israelis. We need to be in prayer for the Christians in that region. And we need to press our leaders to do the right thing.
It is.
I think one of the things I want to mention too is that this all started for me a year ago about now going to the AIPAC conference in DC, and I would highly recommend it to go to be aware of what is going on in the Middle East. And like Eric mentioned, sometimes we're not even getting the truth of what's really going on from our media. So the opportunity to go to the AIPAC Policy Conference, which is March 2nd through 4th, I believe. Mm-hmm. If you go to aipac.org, you can look at the policy conference. But it's a great conference. It's such a powerful, it made a huge impact on me to be with, there was about 13,000 Jewish people last year and about 200 Christian outreach people. And it was just a powerful conference of where you can stand for, together for Israel.
And you both touched on it. The Muslim Arab reporter told us, when I write something bad about Israel, it makes the papers everywhere across the globe. When I put something good about Israel, I can't get anyone to carry the story. Mm-hmm. So you're absolutely right. We're not hearing the truth. And I was touched by the compassion when they explained the links they go to. Their enemies are putting bombs and rockets in homes, in hospitals, in schools, so that if they would strike those areas where those weapons are, then the media says Israel has hit a home. So they've gone to this extra preventative measure, and they took us through those steps. I was moved by their compassion. I was moved by what they do to save lives across the border. And you're right, Terry, because there are Christians in Syria. There are Christians in these other countries. And so I think our role is to help others understand, to help educate those around us in our spheres of influence, to change the world where we are, to make it better where they are, and everyone across the globe then will benefit. But I thank you all for taking time out on this snowy, blustery Iowa day to come join me in the studio. I will look forward to hearing from you when you go to AIPAC conference. Again, seeing what you come back and what you've learned at that event as well. And maybe we should come together with our Iowa 5, our Israel Iowa 5, and keeping the covenant alive. But thank you for tuning in. Thank you for joining us and spending your time with us. AIPAC.org is a great place to get information. You can email me at truthforourtime@gmail.com. This is Tamara Scott Live. Truth for Our Time is the show. Webcast1.com, webcast1live.com is what we're powered by today. So thank you so much for joining and tuning in. Stay safe, be encouraged, and never be complacent.